Welcome to World Breach Report number 15 from Sean Hunt's Monsters. I'm your host, Sean. Here we discuss the files that can help you, the cage that imprisons your mind. Thanks and gratitude to everyone who has liked, shared, and subscribed, and for help at this battle against the forces of darkness. So let's get into it. This episode, today, we're going to be talking about some ideas that are, well, progressively more crazy than the ideas I talked about the last other day, which, if you've been following the show, you pretty much know that I talk about a lot of crazy stuff. And it's not getting any more sane, you know? Like, things are getting pretty far out there. And one of the things I've noticed is, well, nobody has any memory. And I don't mean that goldfish memory where we're out of the news cycle. I mean, we can't remember things that happened a year ago, 2 years ago. We forgot all about 9/11. We forgot all about the Las Vegas shooter. We forgot all about JFK, for crying out loud. So you got to kind of wonder, what other things have we forgotten about? Like, what if we discovered the truth about UFOs long ago, and if it wasn't, like, reinforced to us over and over and over again, we just forget it? They even talk about things in museums. You've probably heard this, where, like, it was discovered in a museum basement. What? How can something be discovered if it's in the museum basement? You've already got it, like, it didn't just manifest there, okay? Like, it had to be discovered, somebody brought it in, they packed it up, they cataloged it, they put it in the basement. And by the same token, you've got things that are lost inside of museum basements, like giant skeletons and whatnot, which is why I'm not a super huge fan of museums. Like, don't get me wrong, I think things should be protected and stuff, but if somebody pays $50,000 for an artifact on the private market, do you think they're going to damage it? Or do you think they're going to keep it in probably like some inert gas-filled case and keep it as an item of pride and joy? Obviously, they're going to look after it because they're invested into it for $50,000. So it seems to me that the purpose of the museum is not to actually preserve history. The purpose of the museum is to hide history. The purpose of the museum, like I see back in the day, everyone's like, whatever, it's gold, melt it down and we'll make ingots and I'll get the cash for it. Yeah, I can see that. But there's a whole lot of things that are valuable because they're historic. And now is not, you know, the roaring 1800s when the guys were running around with dynamite, unfortunately. But it does seem to matter that, you know, they're hiding all of this information about our ancient past. And guys like Graham Hancock and, well, a whole host of others are slowly cluing into this idea that maybe these museums are not what they sort of, you know, say they are. And Charles Fort was right when he said that science is kind of a bit of imagination control. You start coming across, like, weird stories and stuff like that. People go, well, that's not true. Well, you're just knee-jerk saying that because you don't know what these people saw. And if it's not reinforced by culture, then it's kind of lost, which is sort of bizarre. Like, one of the ones I came across this week, a piece of Fortiana, was about giant scorpions, which, I mean, there's a lead, giant scorpions. Who doesn't want a giant scorpion? North America's largest known native species of scorpion is the desert hairy scorpion, Hydrus arizonius, indigenous to the deserts of southwestern United States, as well as Utah and Nevada, can attain a total length of 5.5 inches or 14 centimeters, which is a big bug. That's a big scorpion. But there was, on the 9th of November, 2025, this account talks about an email from Rick Strauss containing 2 first-hand eyewitness accounts of seeing an apparent giant scorpion in Florida that was almost twice the size of that. Here's the actual account. In the 1980s, I was a hazardous waste specialist in the South Florida district of the Florida Department of Environmental Regulation, now called the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. I saw the scorpions on a routine inspection of the waste at the Highlands Leather Factory in the industrial park at the Sebring Airport in Sebring, Highlands County in Florida. Now, this is interesting. This will have to be dropped inside of the Sean Hunt's Monsters database at the Discord server, which you should honestly show up. There's some good people there. But if we got anybody near the Sebring Airport in Sebring, Highlands County, Florida, I'm looking at you, Ronan Medic. You know, it might be worthwhile to drop down there and say, hey, any of you guys ever seen any really big scorpions? Like, big scorpions. And don't say it's a cryptid. Don't say, oh, yeah, we saw some huge ones that were like, you know, this big or whatever. Well, if it's more than 5.5 centimeters, that's probably what these guys are talking about. While verifying that labels and containers of chromium waste were properly filled out, I caught a glimpse of one as it scurried across the floor. At first glance, it appeared to be a scorpion about 1 foot long. A foot long. And since scorpions don't get that big, I assume my eyes were playing tricks on me, and I actually saw a rat, which is the craziest thing ever. You know what I mean? Like, that's a crazy thing to say just on its face. What do you mean you thought your eyes were playing tricks on you? If you see something and it goes against what's in your cognitive dissonance there, your brain's like, oh, that must be a rat. Okay, take a picture of a scorpion, take a picture of a rat. The two do not look anything alike. I mean, that's just mental on its face. When I told the owner that I saw a rat, but sworn that it looked like a scorpion, he smiled and took me to office, showed a captive specimen in a 1-gallon glass jar. The captive scorpion was fully as long as the jar that contained it. Glass jars are usually about 10 inches long, and that is my estimate for the length of the captive scorpion. The factory owner told me that the giant scorpions are seen occasionally on the Sebring airport, especially in and around the leather factory. A man who was stung said the sting is extremely painful, but not serious, and he did not require medical attention. A scientist who knew about the insects said these scorpions remind him of the scorpions from the Caribbean islands. All the information in this paragraph is from the factory owner. So that's interesting. So I wonder if that factory is still there. I wonder if that leather factory got moved, or maybe got torn down, or maybe got abandoned. I mean, it's in Florida. I doubt it would have gotten abandoned. But that is interesting stuff. And if you're in Sebring, near the Sebring airport in Highlands County in Florida, we'd like to hear from you. Have you seen some giant scorpions? Because that's something that's like, well, it flies in the face of just about everything we know about science. That kind of flies in the face of a lot of things we've seen. And that's something that we can go check out. Like, and there's stuff like this everywhere all over the United States. Yet we sort of like all get lulled back to sleep, you know, day live style, sleep. And yet, you know, the few of us that are starting to wake up, you know, we're coming to the conclusion that things are getting pretty serious. And what's worse now is that the internet and social media and generally our cell phones, let's be real, it's the cell phone, that is controlling our lives. Everything we see through there, how much of your news and information do you get through your cell phone? Really? Versus, say, books. In fact, it's almost come to pass that if the internet doesn't back what the books say, you're like, oh, well, books are stupid. And that's wrong. That's just blatantly wrong. This is a control medium that's being used as literal mind control. And if you don't think it is, well, I guess you're lost. Because there's not much that I can do to convince you otherwise. I mean, you might be watching this on your phone. But this is why I've said to people, you need to start reading books. And spoiler alert, I'm going to mention later a book if you want to start right now. Just go download the audiobook, even audiobooks. I mean, audiobooks have to be made into audiobooks. I mean, they got AI that'll do it for you. But yeah, go check out John Keel's Operation Trojan Horse. That will answer a lot of questions. One of the questions I've been talking about, which I'd like to know, is why aren't they excavating all the other pyramids that are in the desert? What? Yeah, apparently there's a location of a new pyramid is indicated by the archaeologists. There's every reason to conduct excavation. The discovery of a new pyramid could become a sensation, but the excavations do not begin. Why is that? Dr. Vaskov Dobrev, while exploring the desert and the Memphis region, found signs of the pyramids being under the sand. He claims the desert can hide about 120 other pyramids. Wow. Now, if you're an enterprising fellow with some dynamite and, you know, a couple of sport bikes, you could probably get out there and do yourself some good old Indiana Jonesing. Because, hey, after all, if they don't want it, it's in the desert. It's not really theirs. It belonged to people that were dead for thousands of years. Maybe we should go check that out. But why won't they check that out? Why won't they check out the chamber that's underneath the paws of the Sphinx? Why won't they go check out the other chambers that exist inside the Great Pyramid? You think that thing's just actually all solid? There's nothing in there? No. No, they're doing that because it's being repressed. He suggests that the base of the pyramid and the base of this pyramid, this is the base of the pyramid of Userkare, U6, and who ruled for no more than 5 years. So his pyramid was supposedly 52 meters high. It's 156 feet high. Didn't have time to be completed. The plateau has a rectangular shape, and the size of the rib is about 80 meters, which according to Dr. Brove is exactly corresponds to the size of the base of pyramids of that region. He attaches the results of geophysical studies, which are also confirm the probability of finding the pyramids under the sands of the Sahara. Now, a link to this in the description. His finds were revealed during Tony Robinson's Channel 5 Discovery opening Egypt's Great Tomb. Mr. Robinson said Dr. Vasquez Dobrov has been working in the desert side of Cairo for the past 30 years and he's on the hunt for the new pyramid. Now, I wonder why they don't go after these. Now, for a long time, we've had guys like Zahi Hawass, who's been holding the keys to the kingdom and has been fighting with Graham Hancock and fighting with all these guys that are like, yeah, quite clearly, the Sphinx is much older than the pyramids. Quite clearly, this has a connection that is more than physical reality, more than this mechanical reductionistic reality view which we have going on. There's something happening here. And for some reason, the last thing anybody wants is to have this exposed to us. Nobody wants them to come forward and say, oh, hey, this is a thing that's actually happening right now. This is a real thing that's occurring. And that's concerning to me. That's concerning to me. There's a lot of more information that's coming out now. And this is one of the reasons why books are so vital. And this next story would explain, is in a nutshell, why books are so vital and why you need to start building a library. Why you need to start reading the books you own and buy a book. Get the books, okay? Because it's important information that is going to be lost. Just like what happened on the Black Vault. 4 million files were wiped after the Donald Trump ordered the release of UFO documents. Almost 4 million files were wiped from an online archive just hours after President Donald Trump ordered the release of UFO-related documents. The Black Vault, a database run by a researcher and ufologist, John Greenwald Jr. Now, I like how a researcher and ufologist. So it's interesting how they got this subtle labeling. You could just say he's a researcher, or not even say that. I mean, clearly he's a researcher. He's running the Black Vault. But if they call him a ufologist, it's a way for your brain to put him subtly, hypnotically, into a box that says you don't trust this guy. It's interesting. It had its server cleared, deleting millions of declassified files relating to UFOs, CIA projects, and alleged conspiracy. Mr. Greenwald said several server directories had their permissions, safeguard, and file ownership logs changed without explanation. The Black Vault has long served as a repository for government material obtained through the Freedom of Information Act requests. So that's just gone. Gone. All that digital content. And you got to wonder now, if that was air-gapped, does he have a backup? I would hope he has a backup. I mean, maybe not. 4 million files sounds like a lot, but we're in a age now where, they just released a 44 terabyte hard drive. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's not 44 terabytes of stuff. In fact, they said it was, 4 million documents. That's not going to be 44 terabytes. But what is that? That is information control. And information control, by its very nature, is mind control. So we've already gotten this information. Disclosure is irrelevant. Disclosure is this weird psyop that they're sort of running, being like, oh yeah, it's, I mean, how do we even believe anything that the government says? I'm getting to the point now where I believe nothing the government says. And I'm getting more and more convinced that these UFOs, these physical objects that we are seeing, are not from other planets. This is not an extraterrestrial hypothesis. Even with the new Steven Spielberg fan, they're like, why would, God make such a huge universe and only have us in it? Well, A, that assumes that God made the universe, number one. And number two, that also assumes that, just the whole framing of that is kind of bizarre. I think that there's definitely something extra going on here. We're the only planet we can find that has the levels of advanced life that we have. And the things that consider this advanced life, the things that make that possible, things like the moon, which stabilizes, the moon's a weird thing, where it's placed is a weird thing. There's so much weird stuff about the moon we don't even really know. And the more and more you look into this, there's this hideous dark truth that starts to emerge. This complete H.P. Lovecraft style, image of reality that is so horrific, that is so terrifying, that we are actually a petri dish for some kind of outworld creature. These beings that are not human, that are not part of this physical reality all the time, that perhaps show up and leave. I think that there's something desperately frightening going on that we're not aware of. And to see it is so disconcerting. It's so disconcerting that we can't face it. We'd rather believe the lie. And I mean, you look at things like, even to this day, people look at Pizzagate and they're like, oh, that was a lie. That's not a real thing. But you look at like Out of Shadows, you look at the research that was actually done, the reporters who were involved with that, it was never debunked. None of it was. And the guy that guy who like went in there and shot the place and sort of like, you know, he was like, oh, well, and he gave up without incident or whatever. Yeah, he's dead now. Yeah, he was shot by a cop at a highway stop, as I understand it. So he's gone. And that whole thing seemed really kind of psyop-y and sort of cloak and dagger like. Like there's a lot going on there. And let's not forget, the term conspiracy theorist was cooked up by the CIA. It's a category that they made conveniently for people like you and people like me who can read. Who can read and who can think and be like, you know, I don't think buildings fall down in a straight line all the time. Especially when the building is designed to be hit by a plane, like literally designed to be hit by a plane. Did you know the Empire State Building got smoked by a plane? Didn't fall down. Yeah, it's quite a bit older than the new buildings, too. I guess they just don't make them like they used to? Nah, come on now. If a building's going to fall down, I don't think it's going to just collapse in its own footprint like a demolition. You know, I think that we know that there's something wrong there. We'll never know the truth, but we have to know that they're lying. We have to know that they're lying at this point. They found the guy's passport lying in the street. Are you joking? Are you kidding me? How crazy do you have to be to believe that? Yet we do. And why? Why do we? Because it makes the ability to have a family, to go try to buy a house, to try to live our lives, it makes that easier if you believe the lie. If you hold back and you're like, well, you know, I don't know, what is going on here? Well, that means you'll have to do something. You know, it's denial. It's the whole reason why credit card debt is as big as it is. You know what I mean? Well, I'll pay it off over time. I don't want to think about it. And that's how we are with our reality. We don't want to think about it. Well, you're here right now listening to me because you want to think about it. And I'm desperately trying to wake people up. I'll never have a huge YouTube channel. It's not going to happen. Because, obviously, I'm talking about stuff that nobody wants to hear. Nobody wants to hear that there's interdimensional creatures that are probably farming us. Nobody wants to hear that the planet's probably a petri dish. Nobody wants to hear that H.P. Lovecraft was probably right. Where does imagination come from? Where does inspiration come from? Isn't the act of writing itself a lot like remote viewing when you look at the actual process? Nobody wants to hear that because the truth of it is crazy making. It's so nuts. And I'm not the first guy to come up with this. Obviously, I'm just relaying information that I have found in books. It's not hard. These correlations are very easy to make. And Diana Pasulka, great book. She wrote a book called American Cosmic, I think was her book. There's a short I've linked with Jesse Michaels where she talks about how UFOs, when you study UFOs, it impacts the individual in unexpected ways, blurring the lines between science and religion. It starts to affect people. And you begin to wonder, you know, oh, well, all right, so let's think about this for a minute. You know, if you were to start to realize that there's more to physical reality and you become aware of the things beyond this realm. Okay, so if we're going to acknowledge that A, there is good and evil, and B, you are more than your physical body. So that means there's a spectrum which is around us, an invisible world, which has been talked about by every culture since the dawn of time, that we don't see. The invisible world, the unseen world, okay? And perhaps that world can see us at certain times, just like we can see it at certain times, but a lot of the time we can't. It's like we're two slides overlapping each other, but we can't really see it, the fabric model of reality, which I've talked about before. So what I would wonder is if it's possible that they can interact with our reality on a limited level. They can communicate with us and with the people in this realm through things like dreams, visions. Perhaps if you were to tune your brain, the most complicated thing we can find in the galaxy, the thing that everybody seems to be really interested in is the mind. And consciousness, which they don't understand. The human mind, which largely they don't understand. And they have like all these theories and hypotheses and whatnot, but nobody knows what's going on with this. And gradually begin to realize that our notions of reality are pretty flimsy stuff. So, is there evidence of history of people saying there's invisible beings that exist within this invisible world that interact with us, that try to influence us, that try to control our reality, to control us? Well, yes. In fact, every major culture has that. All of them. Even the simple cultures have that. All cultures have that. It's not a mystery. The whole idea of like, no, we're just meat. We're just meat. We die, we're dead. That's it, game over. That is a completely insane idea that was cooked up after World War II. Nobody believes that. Only the few terrified atheists in the West believe that. And it's nuts. It's nuts on its face. And I'll tell you who really doesn't believe that is the elite. And nothing has made that more come home than the latest, rounds of exposures that are happening with these Epstein files. Now, the Epstein files, I heard in the last batch, they were talking about cannibalism, eating people. And honestly, would you even really be surprised? Does that really shock you that they'd be doing that at this point? The kind of weird, bizarre stuff that they're into? Because, of course, if there were these outworld entities that were trying to communicate with us, there'd be secondary evidence, right? There'd be like people doing rituals, try to communicate with them. The people doing these rituals would be the elite, just like it's been throughout history. The more money you have, eventually you begin to look towards spiritualism. You begin to think, what more is there than this? So that's why it's super important. They keep you sick. They keep you poor. They keep you in poverty. So you don't have time to worry about, I don't know, what's the greater meaning in life, because you're trying to put food on the table. You're trying to raise one of the 30 kids they told you to have. That's what it's all about. They don't want you to think. And they definitely don't want you to get the resources to think. And now the internet should be making books so available to people all over the world, but now they've kind of like constricted that. And there'll come a day that books will become like LP records and nobody will want to have them. Even now, if you look at decluttering books and stuff like, oh, decluttering, you better declutter. Why should you have all this clutter in your life? Well, you only have clutter because they're making you live inside of a shoebox. You got 500 square feet to live in, right? So, oh, well, you need that space. You could put a bigger TV in there rather than having a bookshelf. And I've seen, there's multiple of these decluttering sites that are saying, yeah, get rid of books. If you already read it, don't keep it. Get rid of the books. Get rid of them. What good are books anyway? If you already read it, why keep it? Yeah. That's like a hard drive. Why would you should just delete files that you're not going to use anymore. Just, why? You reference what? I mean, you got the internet. You can outsource that. You don't need any of that stuff. But if we look backwards just a little bit, if we look back to what the research that has already been done by guys like Ivan T. Sanderson, by guys like John Keel, by people who've dedicated their life to the research of these fields. Well, this isn't new, guys. This isn't new. The work has already been done. The answers are already there. You just have to go get them. And every day we see more and more evidence that there is outworld influence which is affecting the people in our reality, as crazy as that sounds. But even I've got a link here from Snopes talking about cannibalism and ritualistic sacrifice. The allegations of ritualistic sacrifice appears in documents summarizing a purported interview between FBI officials and an anonymous man in 2019. The man claimed he witnessed ritualistic sacrifice and babies being dismembered on a yacht belonging to Epstein in 2000, according to DOJ records. A search of the DOJ's Epstein library, a trove of more than 3 million documents released in batches since late 2025, reveals 52 instances of the word cannibal and 6 instances of the word cannibalism. And if you try to get any research through Google on this stuff, it's a slog. It is a slog. That's Snopes. And they're like, yep, that's true. Oh, well, moving on. Moving on. We'll just forget that. We'll forget the fact that it was there. Do you remember, Sound of Freedom? That movie that came out with James Caviezel and that guy? And they're like, yeah, that guy didn't that guy get caught up he was doing child exploit? No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. That was a psyop. That was a hit piece that was put out against him. And it's so obviously that it's not even funny anymore. You know what I mean? You have to get to a point where you have to stop believing what these people are saying. You have to start realizing that these people know that what we're dealing with is in fact outworld entities. We're dealing with things that are not human and are not part of this physical world. Now, the world is made of words, so they try to phrase things like conspiracy theorist and ufologist to make you automatically discredit whatever they're going to say. I mean, look at me. I'm just this crazy guy on the internet. God knows the kind of stuff they'll say about me. Won't be hard for them to dig up dirt on me, that's for sure. But it doesn't matter. They can come forward and they can say things, oh, Philip J. Imbrogno, he lied on his resume. Yeah, okay, so? So what? Is what he's saying making sense? Can you verify what he's saying? If you tell one lie, is that it? Your whole life is over? You can never tell the truth again? It's not a very Christian ideal. So I would put forward that there's something going on here. And the thing that really is telling is this idea of the Colins elite, which has been verified from multiple sources. In fact, even in Luis Elizondo's book, Imminent, he talks about a run-in with the Colins elite. And what the Colins elite are these high-level, high-ranking officers, people in the military who believe that these creatures are outworld enemies. So the Colins elite first surfaced in Nick Redfern, who's a researcher, in his book Final Events and Secret Government Group Final Events and the Secret Government Group on Demonic UFOs. Now, I've got a link to it in the description. According to the Redfern sources, alleged insiders from military intelligence and defense circles, a group formed after World War II, a time when UFO sightings exploded, but their suspicions didn't start with flying saucers. They look back to the occult figures like Aleister Crowley, whose mystic rituals in the early 20th century have said to open doors to other dimensions. Then they came across Jack Parsons, also true, rocket scientist and a Crowley disciple. He never worked with Crowley, whose 1940s Babylon working rituals were allegedly tore a rift in reality. Now, the Colins elite believe that this act unleashed dark forces, triggering the 1947 UFO wave from Kenneth Arnold's sighting to the Roswell crash. The Colins elite worldview is downright chilling. They don't see UFOs as extraterrestrial. They see them as demonic manifestations. Now, that's just a word, demonic manifestations. Let's just change that to outworld, okay? Malevolent outworld manifestations. Demonic is a poor adjective to use there. Deceiving humanity into abandoning faith and dangerous ideologies like transhumanism or AI. Alien abductions, with their report of missing time and reproductive experiments, weren't scientific but ritualistic, a form of spiritual warfare. Now, they're automatically tuning this in such a way that you look at it from a religious lens. And I would suggest that there's a third path here. They even viewed the New Age movement, think alien channelers and UFO cults, are a satanic plot to prepare the earth for a false savior. All this is being phrased in such a way. Operating under the military intelligence, possibly Air Force Special Investigation, the group was allegedly steeped in Christian ideology, perhaps with dominionist leanings. Their mission, study the entities, in some cases block UFO disclosure to prevent demonic influence from spreading. So, I would ask you, do you think for a moment that high-level Air Force individuals have the same sort of worldview and ideology of the snake cults from the Appalachian Mountains? Fun fact, I don't actually know if they have snake cults in the Appalachian Mountains, but you get my point, okay? These guys are literally the best of the best. So for them to communicate a worldview and to say that these things are evil, outworld entities that are trying to manipulate humanity and trying to gain control of us and appear as gods, false gods, which is what they are, which is what has been communicated to us by every single myth, every single legend, every single piece of, we've been prepared for this since the days of, watching Stargate on TV. How much of our entertainment and shows that get promoted, I'm not saying that they purposely, everyone involved there, but they get bombarded with show ideas. And eventually, by, 1,000 monkeys on a million typewriters are going to come up with, Shakespeare eventually. So all they got to do is wait until they get a storyline that sort of matches what they're into, and they can promote that to sort of ease people into this idea. So, do you think the Colins elite are stupid? I mean, it'd be enticing to think so. It's enticing to think, oh, yeah, these guys don't know anything. No, they know lots. They know more than we do because they've already got the Air Force doing the research into this. We know that there's psychic connections with these things. We know that these aliens are able to read our minds like it's nobody's business. In fact, we're laid very bare in front of these things. And somehow, when you invoke religious names and stuff like that, these things back off. And we don't understand why that is. Does that mean that Jesus is the answer? I don't know. My guts say, maybe, but that's a very simplistic question with a very complicated answer. I think that the idea of Jesus, I think the idea of good, light, love, all that stuff that the name Jesus has come to represent, I think that is the answer, yeah. Do I think a 2,000-year-old Jewish carpenter who's been dead for quite some time? Well, you know what I mean. Do I think that it's actually that guy? Because, I mean, he never spoke English. It's all Aramaic or whatever it was they were speaking back then. So, yeah, it's a concept. It's a meme. It's an idea that we focused our energy on. And that is a powerful thing. And there are people that have miracles. They've had beings manifest to them. And they manifest with ideas that they have inside of their own mind. And it's very, very interesting how that occurs. And now, even to this day, we're starting to use drugs to tune our mind to see these things, because we have to feel. It's just like, when you see something, light comes down, hits an object, goes into your eyes, your brain looks at this pattern on your eyes and tries to make sense of it. So I think that's what a lot of this stuff with like mushrooms and DMT and all this kind of jazz, that's what I think is going on there, is that you have to parse this information, which is outworld information, in such a way that it kind of makes sense to you, that our brains can deal with. For a lot of this stuff, it kind of feels like we're two ants staring at a television, and we don't have the hardware, man. We don't possess the hardware to understand what that television is if we were ants, you know what I mean? Never mind what the programming was all about. So we're struggling to deal with this. We're struggling to understand this, and so we present things in such a way that it can just sort of make sense to us. Now, there's a Wired article here, which is paywalled, which I linked to. But if you show up and hit like Control-A before the paywall hits, you can copy the whole article. And some people see aliens while on DMT. Researchers want to find out what they can teach us. Aliens. Outworld entities is what they are. Things that are not of this world. A new psychedelic retreat calling itself the SETI of the Mind aims to establish two-way communication with non-human entities people encounter while tripping on DMT. A web of EEG electrodes are put up on your head, and they basically put an IV drip into the bloodstream, and then they get plunged into this reality and they try to explore it. One of the goals behind the DMTX study is an especially trained aspect of the DMT experience, perceived encounters with non-humans, seemingly super intelligent entities. On March 18th, he had a team of experts will launch a new psychedelic retreat in the center/research facility in the tiny Caribbean island of Bequia, aimed at that part of establishing sustained two-way communication with these beings. A SETI for the mind, Gallimore calls it, referring to the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. The center, called Ulysses, the facility named after the ancient Greek city that once attracted spiritual pilgrims, Eleusis, something like that, for the ritual consumption of what some experts believe is a psychedelic potion. The DMT is currently a Schedule I drug in the United States in the federal government's most tightly controlled category, but it can be administered legally in Bequia in a licensed care provider. Yeah. So what is this? What is this? Is this just an idea for people to get people out there to get high, to have these experiences? Or is this going to be a way for us to, communicate with outworld entities? Probably both. Probably both. There's a lot of people that have had meaningful outworld communication by taking these drugs, by tuning the mind, so to speak. Dark City, great movie, go see it. But yeah, you tune the brain, and this somehow, because our brain is the only thing we know of that is somehow able to bridge the gap between our realities. I'm not really sure how it does that, and neither is anybody else. But we do know that we have dreams, we have prophetic dreams, we have astral projection, and the brain is this thing that these outworld entities, these creatures, these things in UFOs, whatever they may be, are deeply, deeply interested in. And through things like DMT and all that kind of jazz, it does seem kind of, I don't know, there's something about it that makes me, I don't like it. I don't like it. I mean, I don't like any drug that has an LDA. I don't know if DMT has an LDA, but, I like things that have a long data sample. People have been eating magic mushrooms for thousands of years. There's no lethal dosage amount with it. People have been smoking weed for thousands of years. There's no lethal amount with it. So if you can't get there with weed and mushrooms, you probably shouldn't get there. As it sits, the Eleusinian experience, starting with a 4-day package, costs $9,500, including 2 DMT sessions, lodging and food. So 10 grand to go to this place and get high. Yeah, I think there's a more cost-effective way to do this. Considering people have been doing this in the jungle with no money for a very, very long time. So I'm not super sure what that is. I think it's definitely going to be a money-making idea, because at 10 grand for 4 days, you can't tell me. I mean, they need money for research. They need money for research. So this is how they're going to promote it, because the government isn't funding anything. And of course, they're trying to restrict the hell out of everything. And of course, people with hallucinogens have been talking about this kind of stuff since hallucinogens came out. And the last thing that any of these guys who are like bombing everybody all over the world want anyone to do is be like, hey man, maybe war is a bad idea. Maybe we shouldn't be bombing people. You know, maybe we should be looking at other ideas. Maybe we should, maybe consider that life is sacred, like all the texts say, the holy books, those books that I was talking about. Yeah. And since we're so busy with our phones, we don't look back at the research that's already been done. A guy could come out, like John Keel in his book, Operation Trojan Horse, his ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, which is exactly what I'm talking about here. You need to check out that book. You realize that he talks about events that have occurred in the early 20th century that you've never heard of. What are you talking about? Is that true? Yeah, and you find out it is true, in fact. And there's a whole section of our history that doesn't even have to be repressed. They just don't talk about it. They just delete it. They just move on. And our goldfish memory doesn't let us think about it. There's something wrong. There's something very, very wrong here. And gradually you begin to wake up and realize that there's more to this. And you get occasional people, and it's not like I'm spouting some crazy theory here about outworld entities. You got guys who are current investigators in the fields, like Ross Coulthart. He said he's visited a secret interdimensional portal. Now, this is very much monster hunting bait. I want to know where you think this is, because if you watch his interview, he gives a lot of clues, and I'm reasonably sure that we can narrow that down to 2 or 3 locations. And this is the kind of thing that people need to get onto to, well, you're not allowed in there. Says who, man? I mean, well, okay, I guess the government says so, and you don't want to break the law. Nobody wants to break the law. But I have a problem with people throwing up a fence being like, yeah, I mean, if you're not damaging nothing, and you want to go see this, and there's greater fish to fry, you know what I mean? Like, there's bigger things here. If nothing else, you could be, look at all the research. Maybe you don't have to go in there. Maybe put a drone in there. See what you can see. There's something going on here. Ross Coulthart claimed in his News Nation Reality Check podcast that he visited a secure site in the United States where the U.S. Forest Service has fenced and security to protect what they say is an ancient Native American archaeologist site. He calls it ruins of tribal art, whatever that means. But Coulthart said he knows it to be really an interdimensional portal. He did not say how he knows it to be a portal. I've just been somewhere in the United States where another portal I know in the United States knows about it, and it claims straight out of Stargate SG-1 or H.P. Lovecraft's Randall Carter series. Coulthart alleges that the federal government is hiding a portal to another dimension and is using archaeology as a cover to keep the public away from the gateway. Of course, he did not provide any evidence for the claim. It is not clear where the site is supposed to be. Coulthart has previously made similar claim about a portal near the Bradshaw Ranch in Sedona, Arizona, and he has hosted a podcast episode discussing portals where Bigfoot allegedly pops into North America from his home dimension, from another claiming the sun is a portal for aliens. Now, I love how in the end of these articles, they come out with these like, oh, and he also claims that the sun's a portal for aliens, and he thinks Bigfoot comes out of like interdimensional, so they discredit him subtly. Subtly, they discredit him. But obviously, there's something going on here. Obviously, like, he is aware of information that's going on. And the more you try to talk about it, the more you try to get that information out, the machine turns against you. The machine turns on you and says, hey, this isn't true, oh yeah, these guys are just crazy pants. And you get to the point where, you're regulated to going to conventions and you're talking to other people who understand it, but they rob that power. You don't get the power. You don't get the media power that you need in order to see that this is true. Now, Coast to Coast AM has been on the air forever. Okay, Art Bell started it, and then it got handed off, and there's like multiple DJs now, and all this information is handed out. It's right there to go take it. You don't have to buy books. I mean, you should, but you don't have to because all this information is readily available. Sure, there's some kooks. Sure, there's some crackpots, but they're pretty obviously kooks and crackpots. And isn't it funny that the kooks and crackpots generally get promoted over people with solid ideas? That I think is really weird. Because there's a lot of kooks and crackpots that they love to spotlight them. See how crazy these guys are? These guys are all nuts. Well, why wouldn't you look at the guys who are more serious? Because they have an agenda. They want to discredit all of this. Why do they want to discredit it? Because they've got their own agenda to keep us all slaves. Stay in your cage. That's what they want you to do. That's why you need to go outside. That's why you need to do things that make you feel uncomfortable. That's why you have to read. That's why you have to meditate. That's why you have to do these things. We've known that these things affect our consciousness and reality literally for thousands of years. It's right there. You can just go see it. You can experience it. And you just have to break yourself out of this stupor that you're in. Well, I don't really have the time for it. Make time. Make time. Get up early. Is your life so incredibly complex that you can't? There's lots of excuses. Don't get me wrong. There's people out there. I just started a new job. My life is really hectic. I get it. I do. And it's hard enough now. They're poisoning us with all this food, this hyper-processed food that should have smoking warning labels on it. I mean, why are they doing this? Why are they keeping us all in these feedlot pens that they're calling cities? What's the idea with giving us all electric cars that we can't get out of the city with? If you lose power, I guess you're screwed. The environment? Are you serious? Are you kidding me? India and China do more damage to the environment than anything in North America. No, this is a control mechanism. Absolutely. And even if you, well, I mean, this guy's just crazy pants. Sean, you're crazy pants. Okay, bro. That's cool, but I'm here to tell you I love you guys. I'm trying to help you people. I really am. Like, obviously I'm not making money from doing this, okay? Obviously I'm not going to be, well, hopefully I don't become super famous in the wrong way from doing this. But I've had a taste of that. It's not the best. It really isn't. You need to understand that what we're doing here, what the whole concept of hunting monsters is about, is because there are things that exist in our world that are outworld entities. And we need to confront that. We need to see what is going on. And it's dangerous. It's dangerous because I think when you see them, they can see you. When you tune your mind in such a way that you can touch these realms, I think that these realms can somehow touch you back. And it affects you. Now, there's a documentary about a guy named Max Speirs. You may have heard of this guy. He died in the 16th of July, 2016. He was a British fella. He died on a couch in Poland after having a fever. And he had a lot of crazy ideas, like ideas that were really, really out there. So I'm not too sure what's going on with Max Speirs, but nobody knows how he died. He talked a lot about ritualistic stuff. There's a documentary I have links to. It's a 4-part BBC documentary. And there's a couple things I want you to notice about the documentary. I want you to look at not only how weird it is, all the things that he's talking about, and the weird nature of his death, but notice how the documentarians try to make all the people that they talk to appear sort of nuts. They want to make everybody so that this documentary doesn't get blackballed as, oh yeah, we think this is crazy, but something did happen to this guy. We don't know what it is, and definitely all these people are crazy. Oh yeah, they're crazy. We're not on board with these people. Yeah, so they have a way, as you well know, it's too easy to edit things in such a way that, make people look like fools, right? So, what is that? What is that? Why are they doing that? Why are they doing? Well, they want to make sure that they don't get classified. They don't get blacklisted. They don't want to get, scooped into that category of those conspiracy theorists, which we know is a CIA term. There's something going on. You know it, and I know it. And this guy, Max Speirs, he kind of stumbled into something with his tuning. Now, I think that when you get involved with this stuff, there's a chance that you could lose, your reality becomes unhinged. But that doesn't mean that everything you see is wrong. You know what I mean? Like if you're under the influence of, say, a hallucinogenic drug, you're going to be perceiving things in reality, and they come across to you in such a way, and your brain is trying to make sense of it. So you're not lying, okay, but you're trying to explain reality as you understand it. You know what I mean? It's like those the Sentinelese, the uncontacted people in Thailand, right? They live in the Sentinelese Islands, and they're totally uncontacted. Nobody's contacted them. A Sea King helicopter came in on these guys. They were firing arrows at it. I thought they were badass. But you got to think, when that guy went back to his tribesmen and he was explaining there was this dragon, it came out of the sky and it was roaring and the grass was moving And it was mind-numbing, and I fired at it. And like, was he lying? Was he lying when he said it was a dragon? Or did he just not know, did he just not have the words to describe it? Obviously, he's not lying, because he's trying to discuss an event which has occurred to him that he doesn't have the vocabulary to deal with, that he doesn't have the understanding to explain. And that's where we are. We are all the Sentinelese. Incidentally, you know, is it so crazy that since we're trying to keep the Sentinelese isolated so they stay primitive, is it possible that perhaps there's other forces that are trying to keep us isolated so we stay primitive, so that we do not eat that fruit from that tree in Eden, and we do not become as we are? We do not become enlightened? We don't see that actually the dominion of man is far greater. Is it possible that something's trying to control the yogurt that got loose in the fridge? And they're like, whoa, now the yogurt has nuclear weapons. This is getting a bit out of control. Monkey's got a gun. Monkey's got a gun. Interesting. Well, I'm all for it. I'm all for us going forwards like that great species we are, the Imperium of Man. I'm all for that. This is our world. And we are emerging as a force in our reality. And you should take heart in that. You should take heart in the fact that there's so much mind control that's being pumped into our public, into our lives, into our mind space. They're working overtime. We know that they have technology 40 years ahead of what they're releasing. We know that. I think a lot of these so-called UFOs may actually be like the TR-6 aircraft and things like that. Yeah, those are somehow like American or secret project things. Maybe a breakaway civilization, maybe, but it's definitely a man-made technology. However, there are other technologies that are not man-made that are outworld tech. And I think that some of these forces are working with and are in league with these outworld forces that are trying to control us, that are farming us, just like has been said since the dawn of time. From the ideas of fairies, to the jinn, to angels, and yes, to the things they call demons, which people are saying are just angels that fell from heaven and they're in a big war, and we try to put this all in some sort of a format that we can understand. There's something going on. You know it, and I know it. And the only way that we're going to get any answers on this is from our own experiences, from people like you and me who are monster hunters. We'll keep it light, keep it fun. We're monster hunters. We're not conspiracy theorists, we're monster hunters. You guys think there's monsters? Yeah, sure, why not? Seems like kind of a fun thing, don't you think? What do you mean, like dragons? Sure, why not? Let's go see what's going on. It's a great cover. It's a good cover. Keep it light, keep it fun. Don't look crazy. Don't walk around with, like, you know, all the wrong tools. Don't give them a reason to, you know, storm your house and think that you're a nutcase. You can just have a bunch of books. Mind you, the day is coming when books are probably going to wind up getting banned too. It's funny that when all these, you know, what do they call them? The psychological profilers, they go into your house, the first place they go is to your bookshelf because they want to know what you're reading. Or they'll go to your browser history now. But let's not make it easy for them. You should probably start, really, honestly, if you can't meditate, take the next best thing. Start reading every day, because all the answers that we're looking for have already been discovered. We're rediscovering them in the lost basement of the museum of our minds. It's been published. People have done this work. I'm not the guy. I've said nothing new here. All I'm doing is rehashing information that has already been released and is actively being repressed by omission. They're just leaving it behind and trying to supersaturate you with the fire hose of what modern media is. Don't fall for it. You're better than that. You're smarter than that. And together, we can figure out what is going on.